Today on Core Conversations, we have Erika Quest. Erika is a leader in the fitness industry, a presenter, educator, and studio owner. She has recently collaborated with the team on a project called the Collective Movement Evolution, where they do Pilates and talk social change. She is well aware of the impact of racism in the fitness industry, and she's using her years of experience and influence in the industry to make a great and lasting impact. Erika is all about knowing the why and letting that fuel her activity. We talked about getting whys as we get older, and also about caring less about who gets the credit when those around us excel. Enjoy the conversation.
But the general backstory on Les, Michelle, Tasha, and I goes back a while. We're girlfriends. We've been girlfriends. We're sisters. We have, Michelle and Leslie kind of had their kind of relationship through Equinox and Pilates. And Tasha and I kind of found each other by way of BOSU in that relationship. And so it was just really natural that the four of us gravitated towards each other. And then Leslie and I know each other through, obviously, Pilates in the industry. And
Yes.
My work with Balanced Body is a lot and varied depending on what I'm needed for. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an educator for them, yes, but I also do my backstory. We won't go all the way back there, but my backstory is that I'm a corporate marketer. So
Okay.
I left that industry when I was 30 years old and jumped ship to come and take a leap of opening my very first Pilates studio, which I still own in Laguna Beach.
Okay.
And so this is going to get me back to Les. So when I started combining my marketing with this world, because my past marketing world was I was super good at selling cheeseburgers. My clients were Johnny Rockets, Del Taco, and Burger King. So I was an ad agency girl all over here in Southern California. And so it was a natural progression for me to kind of merge the Pilates fitness as well as my marketing world together.
Yes.
And Balanced Body contracted with me. This was a long time ago, probably I would say 6 years ago now. And I still work for the marketing side of the business to this day on special projects and kind of whatever they need from me. Right now, it's a little bit more, they're going through some staffing transitions, which is not a bad thing. It's all a really good thing right now. And so my workload is a little bit varied with them. And that's how I kind of found Leslie, because I had known of her, but then she had written this book called Profitable Pilates, which has now been out for years. And I wanted another business voice on their blog at the time. I wanted some more videos. And she was just somebody that I admired from that perspective and what she was talking about. So that's how I got to know Leslie. And it's so funny because she's always like, oh, when Erika reached out to me, I was like, girl, you're crushing it. Like, I want your voice. And so I think that that's just the natural underlying or underpinning thing between the four of us and just all of us as women in general, is that we're girls. Like, we really want to rock it out for not only each other, but we want to support other women. And that doesn't mean we don't want to support other men. We absolutely do too. But like, we're not the kind of people where we're like, why'd she get that job and I didn't? We're kind of like, let's do this. Like, let's champion people. Let's have that spirit of community and move things forward. And so it really came to a head where Tasha and Mish were just super great silent partners and vocal partners when Leslie and I started to have a state of serious unrest in each of us as privileged white people. And so that's kind of where this conversation started and where it eventually led to the collective movement evolution. So
there's a real mutual respect that I hear in what you're saying there that is refreshing. And I've heard the saying before that there's no telling how far you get in life when you don't care who gets the credit.
Yes. It's very true. And also, I mean, if you think about the times that you learned the most, you learned when you were uncomfortable. You learned when you failed. You hopefully picked yourself up and failed forward and tried again and tripped over yourself and stumbled. Like, life is not about perfection. It is actually not about the successes. Those are great. I had a great success yesterday. I ran a 500-person webinar for Balanced Body, got great feedback. It was amazing. It felt awesome. But you know what? And I'm proud of that. I'm not going to say that I'm not proud of that because I'm offering great content. However, the times that I learn the most and the times that I feel valued the most are when I'm doing it with other people, when I'm doing it together. Like, we have one life, at least that we know of right now. And so I would rather walk together hand in hand doing this in some capacity and, champion and support other people in our industry and in life, because life is not about doing it alone for me. And I just really don't feel that the pain point for me of having to do things by myself, or it's give me the credit for it. I don't frickin' care. I don't care. So
yeah, I gather that. That's
probably to a fault, Martin.
Really? Well, how can that be to a fault? Like from your perspective, like how, like where's a time when that, like, do you feel like you diminish your successes at times when someone has to come back and say, do you realize there was 500 people in a room yesterday? Sort of thing?
No, I think what it is that like everyone sees me because I have a large personality, and I get that, and I'm happy about that. It was a gift from my mother, and she's a beautiful, kind-spirited woman. She's the one that's instilled a lot of this spirit of service in me. It's not to a fault. I think what it is that I'm going to equate this to driving, right? So there are a lot of people that love to drive, and it's not that I don't like to drive. Yeah, but I am a very good passenger. Like I am not the kind of person, like I will get you your coffee ready. I will make sure that you're fed. I will not interrupt you. I will not judge your, like, if you're stopping too fast. And so It's not that I always want to be the passenger, because I can absolutely certainly drive. It's just that I'm very good at, I suppose, ghosting a little bit, not in a bad way. And you see it with the work that I do with Balanced Body. I do a lot of that behind the scenes, right? So you don't see me as hugely face forward for the brand, although I am. But I definitely do it more behind the scenes, and that's what I did in advertising and marketing. So when I actually had to develop my brand, because I just overhauled my personal website, I actually hired somebody, James Crater, who you may have had on this show, to help me do it, because it's very hard to look at your own brand,
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of my general sentiment.
I love that. I mean, and I feel I'm the same way with that, where like there's so much joy in supporting someone else. And I love that feeling of helping someone to achieve something, and then them not even pointing back to you for that credit, but knowing that like you were a nice little part of that. That's a good feeling for me.
It feels great. And also just the power and the touch point is what I talk about a lot. And we all can't do this by ourselves. We all have different specialties. You might need a connection in Southern California, Martin. I might need a connection up in Toronto. I don't know. There could be some collab opportunities amongst all of us in this industry. And I think that that's actually the more important conversation, because work post-pandemic and even now will never go back to what everyone's saying we're going to go back to the normal. It's not going to be that way.
No, it's gone.
It's going to be events like the Collective Movement Evolution. It's going to be like Momentum Fest. It's going to be these more virtual environments. It's going to be smaller collaborative live streams where maybe I don't have a classical voice, but I want a really great male classical voice, and I want to work with you, Martin. Do you know what I'm saying? So those are the kinds of things that are going to be happening going forward. And I talked about that yesterday or Wednesday on the e-learning series. I said, get to know people right now, even in the virtual space, because this is how we will now and forever begin to monetize our businesses as well as our brands. So that's my personal opinion, but I think that it's going to stick. I think it's going to stick around.
I had a personal trainer on Wednesday coming on, and Jason Martin. He's a fantastic, really super smart guy.
Is that Charm City PT?
No, actually,
no?
Jason. He's Jason Williams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he also is brilliant, but the other brilliant Jason. We were talking about how virtual training is much like food, where we need our whole foods for our nutrients, but then our vitamins, our protein shake, our omegas and stuff are supplements to our foods when you're doing these things right. I feel like virtual training, when we get back to normal and people are in their spaces, that we shouldn't forget about the virtual and make the virtual training, if nothing else, a supplement to what our training is happening, what we're doing. Because what if we go back into a lockdown again? It's good that our clients have come to a place where this is part of the culture. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see that disappear. One, in case we go back into lockdown. And two, because it just keeps some responsibility and some ownership on the clients to do their work.
It does. It actually keeps them accountable for their homework. Hi, Alex, my teammate from Bosu just joined. Whoop, whoop.
Hey.
Anyways, I could not agree more. And it also disenfranchises the market in a good way. This freaks some people out because they're kind of like, oh my God, like now everyone can find everyone. And what if my clients go over here? But they've been one of my students. Like I even see Sarah's on here from the UK. She trains with me, and she also trains with other people, and that freaks people out. Do you know what I'm saying? But for me, I think it's the world is our oyster. It's the one thing that actually I've told my clients personally for years, because they feel like, oh, Erika, sweetie, well, you're just traveling. We'll just wait till you come back. And I'm like, no, you're not going to wait till I come back. You're going to have Anita take you. You're going to have Irina take you. You're going to have, you need to experience other people. You need to experience other personalities. And I feel like I love that loyalty and retention in them, because that's, building a good brand and being a good instructor. However, that doesn't mean that you can't, joyfully go out and experience other movement modalities or other instructors or other personalities. And so I think that's probably one of the pain points in our industry that people will have to get over, along with the fact that people that are just not comfortable on camera, they just got to get a little bit more comfortable on camera. And what Leslie Logan, if she's still on, because I quoted her on Wednesday, she said this to me for years, right? So Leslie's been in the virtual space for a very long time. I've been out on the road being a road warrior, and I've always wanted to develop a virtual space, of which I'm doing now. I don't need to plug it, but nonetheless, what the 3 simple words she has said to me over and over and over and over and over again: just get started.
Right.
And so that's what I say to everyone now, because you don't need to be the slick one with the schedulicity integration and the acuity, blah, 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 and the Squarespace that, and the Kajabi da-da-da, and televideo. You don't have to be that. Just get started. That was
impressive, though.
Yeah. I mean, just get started. Just get started. It can be Zoom. It can be you typing in names on a Word document saying, so-and-so is coming to class, reminder, send them an email to the Zoom link. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. There are levels, but you're not going to know more until you do more. And so you need to just get started in some capacity and change it up. Like Leslie's at a different phase in her platform than I am. I've learned immensely from what she's done over the last 2 years by just watching, right? I'm not trying to replicate it. I'm just watching it. And she knows I'm joking when I say, she's going to yell at me at 9 o'clock when we have our meeting about, get that ring light out of your face, girl. But it's true. And these are the kinds of conversations and relationships that you can build and also just really nurture and learn from each other, because it doesn't have to. I'm not saying don't pay people for what they're due, but when you do have these conversations, such as you and I, such as the girls and I do, such as I have with other colleagues in the industry, you can pick ideas off, take notes, and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to try this 30-day trial for Teachable. It might not be my platform, but I don't have to pay anything for it right now. So,
yeah, exactly. That trial and error, those are great learning opportunities, and we're afraid to fail, right? That's really what it comes down to. So once you can get over yourself, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I like the term fail forward, right? One of my mentors in the fitness industry says that all the time, because when he's talking about myelin wrapping, which Alex talks a lot about myelin wrapping, if he's still on here, the concept of myelin wrapping in the body is that you don't just do a squat and it's perfect to the first time or ever, right? You have to repeat it. You have to do your reps, as they say in the gym. And that's the same thing in life, right? And if we even apply this to Pilates, nobody or barely anybody walks out into a Pilates class and just busts out the perfect teaser. And really, what is the perfect teaser anyways, depending on the body, right?
Right.
And so for me, it's that concept of failing forward, because myelin wrapping that's what it's about. It's about doing it and doing it again. And even if you do fail, getting up, tripping and falling and being fine with that, but picking yourself up and trying it again. So
absolutely. And that's the conversation we've had around racism all week. That's exactly the same approach, whether it's fitness or activism. We need to give people space to fall forward and to fail forward as well.
Totally. And I'm excited that I didn't realize that you had somebody that was Canadian on Core Conversation. So I will definitely go back and listen to that, because I don't really know what's happening with social injustice in Canada. So
it's a really interesting conversation with her, and it's since Canada Day here, I really felt challenged within myself to learn more about our Canadian history as opposed to what's been taught to us in the schools.
Good.
And some of the things that have come up have been really, really interesting little pieces. So there's so much more to learn. And I have to say that the one frustration that I've had is that there's things I'm learning now at 45 that I should have learned at 13 in school.
All of us feel the same way.
You know, and I'm like, for someone who's passionate about learning, I feel like I've been robbed of some things that so I feel like I need to I'm putting out like history like minutes, like I'm like Canada history board or something, but like we just do it and we learn. But the
school, and this is speaking as a wife of an educator, the school system does really need to be overhauled in many, many countries out there. My husband is a middle school history teacher. And so even during this time, we've had some very serious conversations and really interesting conversations of, not that he's quote unquote going to change his curriculum, but he will probably go about, when he teaches African history, he doesn't teach US history a different way, in the way that he presents the queens and those types of things. And so it's been, I think it's a really important conversation to keep going. And I think that's been the biggest thing for myself, Leslie, Michelle, and Tasha. And that's why in the impetus of Black Lives Matter here in the States, as well as some of the wonderful events that just popped up right away in the protests, we wanted to support those and amplify those and kind of quiet ourselves, because we were going through our own journey during that time, and a very serious journey. And one of which, Les wouldn't mind if I tell you this, but Leslie was moving from downtown Los Angeles across from the federal building when the protests erupted, and she was driving to Las Vegas. I was on the phone with her when she's driving the car to Las Vegas, and we were having these very serious conversations, because the first conversation, because we're girlfriends, we talk weekly, if not more. It's like, we were like, what's going on? And I'm just going to be honest with you, Martin, as white people, we were just like, what's going on? And then it kind of got more serious. We were like, what is going on? And should we be paying attention to this? And, so the conversations got varied, and they transitioned throughout in a very good way. And then a lot of great resources started to pop up with anti-racism courses and Chrissy King's course, which is awesome. I really valued that one specifically, because it is hard work and it is turning the mirror on yourself. However, it's done in a space of compassion and not a space of judgment. She wants you there. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the bigger thing.
Present.
Yeah. And I think that's the bigger thing too, that came to mind when the collective movement started to come about, after sort of like we wanted to really support this and allow for the other bigger events to have their moment. And we wanted to support it as four friends. The bigger thing to us was that, like, we know that we need to have a conversation, and we want to do it in a way where we're inviting all colors into this, right? Because Martin, I'm an honest person, and I will say this: white privilege is not a bad term, but you need to understand what it is. It is not a nasty word, but if you don't understand what it is, you cannot course correct, and you cannot go to those uncomfortable places. I am not perfect. I will make mistakes in this conversation, perhaps, and that's fine. But if you want to invite people in, and you want the change to happen, and you want things to continue on a continuum of change, in my opinion, there has to be an inviting environment and not a hostile, combative environment. And that, for me, is, and it doesn't mean that you can't come into that environment. You might get a spanking once in a while, like, whoa, I didn't know that. Like, wow, that's a lot for me to even comprehend. It doesn't mean that. I'm not trying to be some like, oh, cute little white girl, you don't have any problems. What I'm trying to say is that if we really want to create change longer term, we have to do this together, and I think that's where Tasha and Michelle, because Leslie and I didn't know if they would be into this at all when we approached them as girlfriends. We were like, you can totally say no. And they were 100% in.
Right. Which is, that's amazing. I mean, that's the way that it should be with friends, right? Like, But that kind of comes full circle to Tasha's comments that I posted out here, is that like you didn't have to do that. Right?
I know.
It's one thing for them to be like, sure, we'll join you, but like you didn't have to do that. And as much as this time has been very uncomfortable for Black people and having to feel empowered to have a voice in all those different things, there's an ethical dilemma for white people too, because now your favor is on the line too when you take certain stances, when you say certain things. It's like, oh, she's on that side of the fence. What do we do with her now?
Yeah, but here's the deal, Martin. I will never do anything that I do not believe in, right? So there has to be a why to every single thing that I do. And you will hear this time and time again out of my mouth. I am an educator. I sell education. I do not sell leggings. I am not the girl that jumps around on the reformers and does party tricks. I mean, I might deliver some of those in some of my content, but the why behind the what of who I am is something that is not about getting more followers. It's not about worrying about any of that. It is about doing what I believe in, and it is about being open about that, right? And also being uncomfortable and being okay with that, and understanding that now is not the time to sweep anything under the rug, because that would have been Erika in her maybe 20s and 30s when some social unrest things happened in Los Angeles, and I didn't have the concept of what was happening. But at 45, pardon my French, I'm fucking over it. Like, now is the time to act. Right?
Yes.
I'm comfortable in my own skin. I know who I am as a human person. I'm constantly evolving. And at the same time, like, I'm not going to, listen, if something bigger comes out of the collective movement evolution, great. But that's not where my brain is at. My brain is at community. My brain is at collective. My brain is at togetherness. My brain is at, let's do this together. That's the whole point. And that's, I think, the point in my life. And Tasha is right. But at the same time, when you feel authentically really poignant about something, and you've also been given resources thoughtfully, because this first event that we did was the why behind the what on that was Deepa Iver's resources on the roles in the social change ecosystem. And they were powerful. And the why behind that event was that there are so many different roles that we all need to know exist for the greater good of social change. It's not just the protesters. It's not just the people that you see out on the front lines. It's the caregivers. It's the experimenters. It's the visionaries. It's the first responders. There's so much more that's involved in that. And I think that is where people start to kind of pull back, because they just see the people that are on TV and they're like, oh God, I can't do that. I wouldn't want to do that. And that's not what it's about. And I thought that's partly why we felt it was so important to bring that to the forefront as well.
Absolutely. And Sonia's the one who said, and I keep quoting, it's like, everybody is an activist, right? So some people are going to be confrontational and combative and in your face and really slap you around. And someone else is going to be out there with the protesters with a water jug and just like support. And someone else is going to use their leverage to support somebody else. So we are all activists in some way, shape, or form. And like you said a few minutes ago, Erika, it's about being authentic. And when you're fueled by the authenticity, your passion comes out. And when you lead with that, you go to great places. And I can see the authenticity in everything that you do.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that very much. I think that it takes time also in the industry, and just also getting a real good grasp of where you want to stand and putting your blinders on, at times. Like, there are times where it's like, you look over to the side and you're like, should I be doing that? Wait, should I be over, but ultimately just slap that blinder back on and stay in the lane that you're supposed to be in. And my lane is to move better is to live better, right? And so if I feel like I am moving you better, you're definitely living better. And then all other things stem from that.
Exactly. You mentioned your age, same as my age at 45. 75, 76? What year?
74.
74.
Yes, 74. married for 25 of those. So
okay, there you go.
Child bride.
Pardon?
Child bride.
I thought you said male bride, like
no,
mail order bride? Like,
no. Kind of, I suppose, but I was very young. I met my husband at 20 and we were married only 10 months after. So it was very quick, and it hasn't come without its bumps and bruises, as we all know a relationship can deliver, but that's okay.
Yes. My background's in marriage and family therapy, so I'm like sitting on my hands trying to stop myself from asking like 90 follow-up questions to that. What I was going to say though, at 45, there's things that we know, there's things that we don't care about other people's. We've been delivered from the opinions of other people.
Yeah.
We've had our own life experiences, and I've gone through a divorce, right? So there's a sense of got married at 23, and she was 21. You go through those ups and downs, and then you have some disappointments. And as an athlete, you feel like you've become a stat and you've lost, and all these different things that go through it. You get through that, you come back up, and then after that, you don't care about, one, what people think, and two, you don't really care about the worst case scenario because you feel like you've hit some of those really bad scenarios already. And it's funny how that gives you so much energy to do more things because failure doesn't matter anymore.
No, it's so true. And I think that you also get really scrutinizing. A dear friend of mine said a long time ago to me, you know, we only have a very small amount of free time in our lives. And guess what? We get to choose with whom we want to spend it with. And I think that you get real clear on that the more that you age, you know. And I think about like when I go on a dog walk, and there are many of people that I've seen that have joined this and maybe are still on or have hopped out. And I'm a phone caller, right? Like, so don't give me your phone number, Martin, because I'll just call you. Like, this is what I do. I go on dog walks and I'm like, walking my dog. And I'm like listening to a podcast and a name will pop into my head. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to call James, or, oh, I'm just going to call Leslie. And that's kind of like it's not my own therapy, but it's also just my way of reaching out. But that's a relatively small list, you know, that's not like, that's not the list that maybe I had or wanted to have in high school that I didn't have. That's not the list that I didn't have in college. Because fun fact, I'm a proud college dropout. We can go there if you want to. Okay. I am. And so, you know, I think that you just get really, really clear with the surroundings of yourself as well as your life. And we got to celebrate that, you know?
Absolutely. As part of my, my New Year's resolutions type thing, one of the things I do, this is a little secret between you and I and everyone that's going to watch this later. One of the things I do besides looking at, you know, new habits, new goals and stuff like that is writing down the people that I'm going to pour my life into for the next year. Who am I going to make time for? What guys do I need to connect with? What couples my wife and I are going to really spend time with and invest in? And that it's almost like, you know, that pencil circle around your close friends. It's like I take a Sharpie and make that line super dark. Yeah. And those are the people that I'm going to spend my energy on. And everyone else can come and ebb and flow behind, you know, around that. But those are the people that I'm pouring myself into.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, like, you know this because you do we do it together. We're empaths, right? And so it's really easy for us to give all of our energy to everybody all the time. And Jenna, actually, because you brought her up, is so good at coaching that as far as setting boundaries and, you know, and I feel actually very lucky to be married to a teacher, even though in a different way, because there are times where he comes home and I come home and we're like, you good? And he's like, I'm good. I'm like, great. Because we've been talking all day and we've been interacting. So it's very important to not only recognize our empathic tendencies, but distill and drill that down to your point, who you really want to focus on. Because for me, and it's just like life is just like Pilates. It's about quality versus quantity, right? Nobody's looking to do 645 teasers on the box. At least I'm not. I'm not looking to do the teaser challenge. I don't need to be David Goggins, although I love David Goggins. Fun fact, do you know who David Goggins is?
No, I don't.
He's this crazy Navy SEAL that like runs a marathon a day. That's a whole different thing. He's amazing. But it's, I don't need to be him, right? I'm going for quality in my life and not quantity in my life. And I try and translate that through all of the platforms that we're on and everything.
Yes, exactly. I love what you're saying about the why earlier. Can you just talk about why is so important to you?
because it's the foundation of the behind the scenes of the point of what I'm doing, right? So if I'm coaching movement and I'm looking at a client, I'm not going to just give them a burpee because it's hard, I'm not going to level them up to, an arabesque on the reformer because it's hard and it looks cool. I want to look at that human being, as I say, that snowflake in front of me, because every snowflake is beautifully different. And I want to think about the why behind the what I am giving to them from a movement perspective, because to move better is to live better. So if I am training to their why, I am training them towards ease, economy, and efficiency of movement.
Nice. Yeah.
And sometimes that does not mean they're going to be doing burpees ever for the rest of their life, right?
Yeah.
They might be doing a variation on tendon stretch. They might be doing some more posterior chain work. They might be doing a whole host of other things. So I take that philosophy as a movement educator and a Pilates instructor and a fitness educator, and I apply that to everything that I do. What's the point? And I think that that's a little bit of my marketing background, because I have to develop a lot of strategy, so I'm doing a lot of mission, vision, purposes. I'm doing, what are the assets here? Why are we developing them? What's the point of them? And so I just kind of take that kind of, it's a big concept, Martin, but it's actually not hard to apply as a very elementary form of thinking. Just apply it to everything that you do,
Like
hold on. You don't need to negotiate if you're going to go for a walk, though. Like you can wade into the weeds on this too. I've had friends that are like, oh, but Erika, I'm just waiting until the right time to go and train for my 5K. And that's where I'm like, just get off your ass and go for a run, like just go do it. Like there's a little bit of that too. But when it's bigger thinking, when it's life, when it's brand, when it's things that I am choosing to be a part of or I want to spearhead, there's always a why.
Yes.
One would not know this about me, but I'm a very cautious person. Not in life, in the fact that like I can't push myself. I'm gritty, but I think I very much think about things before I commit to them, because you're an athlete. You've been in the industry for a long time. I would imagine products and people have come to you and wanted to say, hey, Martin, can you do this for us? Can you do that for us? I have great relationships with a couple of brands, with Balance Body as well as Bosu. I've been with Bosu actually well longer than I've been with Balance Body. And so that was a brand that approached me. This was back in 2008 and 2009 by way of my mentor or one of my mentors. And, I thought about it, and it ended up being a really great opportunity. And I've stayed with that brand, and I've had a really good run with that brand ever since. And I believe in it, but there had to be that there, I'm not going to walk through a convention center or a convention hall, whether it's CanFit Pro or Idea World, and just buy into the new fandangle dongle that somebody, or the carrot that somebody's dangling in front of me. Right. So that's what I mean when I'm cautious.
I gotcha. Yeah. It's so funny, Erika, just like totally off the record. Now that you said Bosu, I'm pretty sure that we've met at CanFit Pro in the past.
Oh, maybe so.
I presented with Twist Conditioning when they were doing a lot of work with.
Pete. Pete was with the brand like back in the day. I love Peter Twist. He's a good colleague of mine and a friend of mine. And I know all those guys. Back in the day, my mentor and still mentor Jay Blahnik, who has since left the industry and he's with Apple now. He's the one that actually made that introduction, because one of my mantras is that I don't believe in coincidences. I only believe in divine appointments. And so he was one of my divine appointments. His offices were in the same building that I opened my first Pilates studio in, and he started being my client. And then that was my kind of power of the touch point into the brand. So,
and Douglas Brooks too.
Douglas and Candace are still my mentors and the whole 9 yards.
There you go.
So I've had that relationship even longer than Balance Body. I've developed their Pilates specific curriculum and forayed into a little bit more of the mind body side of things, along with Helen Vanderberg, who's my teammate, who's a Canadian. And then that's Alex McLean, who's my teammate, Michael Piercy, who's on the East Coast. So we have a whole host of just great teammates.
I presented with Mike for TRX.
You did? He's such a great guy.
Guys. And those relationships are so rich, right? Those are just really, really cool people that we surround ourselves with, that we're really blessed to have in our world. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yes. Ready is a lie, Leslie Logan just said. I say ready is an excuse.
Oh, you want another Mr. Questism? So here's
Yes.
what Mr. Quest is to his middle schoolers. Excuses are like armpits. We all have them, and they all stink.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I can see kids laughing at that.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Absolutely. When is your next what's your TCME?
Oh, yeah.
event?
So the girls and I are actually going to talk in about an hour and 15 minutes on event number 2. So save the date for those of you who are on here or want more information. That is coming on September the 13th. I remember that because it's my dad's 84th birthday.
Okay.
It's a Sunday, and it's going to be, again, the same time as our last one was. It's at 8:30 to 10 Pacific Daylight Time. So we're trying to go across the country and over to Europe if we can accommodate those time zones, but you can always get the playback. And the topic on this time is we're shifting it away from social change. Not that we're not going to have that conversation anymore, that it's not going to come into play for this, but
Right.
we are choosing the topic this time because our kind of goal here is to bring forward topics that are uncomfortable and to walk into these conversations and to talk about them and to bring others into the conversations, not, like I said, in a combative way, but in a joyful way. So our next topic is body diversity and the fact that different shapes look different doing different things. And how do I coach somebody who has a totally different body type? You know, should that body type be doing X said exercises? So we're going to delve into that. And it's going to be, again, another movement experience for an hour with the 4 of us in a round robin experience. And then we will have a chat and a dialogue after. Answer any questions through the chat feed and just hang out with those that want to be a part of the conversation, because this is a wildly varied topic and there's a lot of exclusivity with regards to this topic, and a little bit of a statistic that I want to share with you. And I believe that this rings true for both men and women. Only 5% of what we see in the media is an actual true representation of what a real body is. And
Just
that
5%.
has been unequivocally perpetuated, especially in the American media, of what a body is and what it should look like. And then if you translate that to Pilates, there is that term Pilates body. There is just in general a look and feel. And I'm not blaming the dancer community by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot of dancers in this, and it's wonderful because it's healed their bodies. And I'm not saying anything negative about that. It's awesome. But there has been sort of a perpetuation of what you're supposed to look like.
A performative approach.
Yes. And I think that that's okay if that's a healthy lifestyle for you and that's what you look like. And that's awesome. I'm not judging it at all whatsoever. But there are a myriad of different ages and bodies and people and colors that do Pilates and do this modality and actually move their bodies in fitness and wellness and the wellness space. And I believe that we need to have that conversation. The girls and I believe we need to have that conversation and start to amplify that, because no two people are the same. You're not going to look at the same doing a push-up as me, Martin. And that's the simple statement. There's a lot more complex issues behind this. Yep, but we want to open the door to that. We just want to say, come on in, let's talk.
That's great. And when I had Jason on Wednesday, we were talking about that because he works a lot with athletes. So whether it's like the Toronto Maple Leafs or like high-level sprinters, high school students. And the conversation we had was around that term body positivity. And coming from a performance perspective, what do we do in terms of like body positivity when we are working with athletes where we're trying to go for optimal performance? And I really tiptoe around this subject a lot as a guy and the way that my body looks and all that stuff, because I feel like that term body positivity is very affirmative and inclusive and welcoming. The way that hi Josh. The way that Jason presented it was interesting, because he said we're not just looking at exercise, we're looking at sleep, mental state, fuel. And if those things are in line, your hormones are in line, your body falls in line, and your body changes.
Yes.
It will land where it needs to land. Whereas sometimes some of these terms that we come up with give us an excuse to settle where we are.
100% agree with that statement. However, I would also like to add that as a perimenopausal woman who would really like to rip her sweatshirt off right now because I'm drinking coffee, that from a female perspective, our hormones are ever changing. And I would venture to say that if you had a female athlete on here, she would say the same thing, whether it was somebody who had just been pregnant as a young athlete and or somebody who is well along into their career. And so I say yes and yes to what Jason and you talked about. I also just caveat that with the fact that the female body becomes, you're married, a lot more complex, and I'm learning. I have not had children, but I'm in perimenopause, and so my hormones are changing, and I'm like, where'd that thing on my stomach come from? Like, I've been eating just fine, you know, like, and so there's a homeostasis that becomes, I think, a little bit different for everyone. And listen, if you're training an elite level athlete and performance is your goal, then you're probably going to have a whole host of people that are participating in that conversation. But for the layperson, our clients, the general population that we're speaking to, what is performance? Is that, you know, getting up and getting down off the floor better? Is that, you know, is that maybe like introducing more of a kale salad instead of an iceberg salad? Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a spectrum of that as well. So I think that performance is relative also.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And that's a Peter Twist comment. Like, what is your podium performance? Your podium performance is picking up your grandchildren, playing with them, sending them home with their mom, and you not being sore the next day.
Right.
So when you say lines like what I was saying with that, what Jason was getting to was that your hormones are going to determine where your body goes. So align your body, give your body the best chance of success through movement, through nutrition, through your mental state, through all these different things, and where your body lands hormonally will also dictate where your body lands physically.
Definitely. And, you know, that can also change from day to day, moment to moment, and minute to minute, because the brain, you know, the mental health connection comes into play here as well, because there's a lot of that as we start to, you know, have maybe a postpartum experience for those that have had babies, and or as we start to age and our hormones change and you're like, wow, where'd that come from? And you're not feeling like you're looking so great for your significant other or whatever that is. You know, I think it's just like Jason said, you know, performance is performance, and whatever that is for that person in front of you is what's true. Now, I'm not sitting here and condoning that, like, you should be having 3 Big Macs a day to soothe your mental state by any stretch of the imagination. Like, that's out of the performance paradigm, right? So if you're not addressing that, then that's a piece of the puzzle that's missing. That's why your hormones are off. Now, I'm not going to refute the fact that it is pandemic times, and I've eaten my share of cheese quesadillas during this time as well. However, you need to have that element of course correction, right? Do you actually look at that, have that awareness, and say, all right, Erika, let's pump the brakes on the cheese quesadillas. Like, let's get back to a kale salad. Let's get back to that performance paradigm that you were in and see what happens there. And then you call your girlfriends and you say, are you taking this thing called black cohosh? Because it's supposed to work. Come on, Martin, you guys do it too. You do the bro science thing. You're like, yeah, man, what supplements are you on? Like, I see your shoulders are like a little broader, man. Like, what are you taking?
You saw my post about the shoulder sleeve gap. Like, I mean, you guys do it too, of course.
We do. I know. And I'm like, I have to say, like, I'm such an inner tomboy. Like, my favorite podcaster is Joe Rogan, who's like the commentator for the MMA. And so I love the bro science that goes on that podcast. It just cracks me up. So
too funny. In our last 7 minutes here, what would you have as a takeaway for our Pilates community who are just in the midst of this pandemic and racism and movement, and there's so many things that are flying at us? Like, how do we navigate this? What is your word?
Stick together. Love one another. Get to know people. Like, I've loved getting to know you more for the last 55 minutes.
Absolutely.
Support one another. It's not about you. It's about the collective of all of us doing this together. And also, there's only one way that we can get more educators that are BIPOC or people of color on the education circuit, and that's by amplifying voices. This fitness and Pilates specifically has been really kind of white focused. And listen, I learned about it through an injury, and I went to a school not knowing the history, not knowing anything. But when you look around, that's kind of what you see. The only way that we're going to see different voices and different people and different bodies is if we continue to amplify and have this conversation together and champion and support people. It's partially why Tasha Edwards and I got really, really close, because we met years ago, and she actually started writing for me because I knew her story a long time ago for Balanced Body. And so it was my impetus to just start that amplification, even before all of this. And the only way that we can continue this conversation and get more involvement and have, and it's not about me losing a job and you gaining a job, Martin. That's not what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of that fear-based mentality too. It's about us doing it together. You guys, there is so much business to be had. And if we do it together, we're going to be 100 times more powerful.
Well said. Well said. And that's, what do you add to that? I just love everything that you're about, Erika.
Thanks, Martin.
The highest compliment I can give anyone is that you're just a real person. You are just so authentic, and you're just fueled by that passion for people and their why. And I love it. I'm cheering for you in everything that you put your hands to.
Ditto, my friend. And, it's been really, really great to chat to you, buddy, and to get to know you. And I hope that the next time, if they actually let the United States people come into Canada, I can come up and see you in Toronto. Did you hear that I said that properly?
Yes, I did.
Toronto. No T,
Toronto.
Right?
Right. Yep.
It's not Toronto. It's Toronto.
Right.
Yeah.
Just rules. It's Toronto.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome. Thank you for having me so much. I'm so grateful, Martin. And thanks for being patient with my schedule. And I'll see you along the journey.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Core Conversations. This organic platform has been made possible by amazing people like yourself. So if you're a Pilates instructor or a movement specialist of some kind and you want to be a guest, please message me. If you're in some other field and the messages just resonate with you, message me. I'd love to have you on. All of our messages connect, and for some reason they all help us in this battle. We're all in this game together, so I'd love to hear from you. Let your words be life to someone else. Check out our website, personalvictory.ca. Click the Core Conversations page to see who our upcoming guests are, and I will see you next time on Core Conversations.